Terrorists hijack a holiday flight full of civilians. They rig the plane with high explosives.
One press of a button, the whole aircraft could be destroyed.
Over the next 6 days, the attackers show no mercy.
They just change the dynamics of the game when you kill an innocent person.
The terrorists seem to hold all the cards.
It's a bad, bad target to attack.
With a massacre just seconds away, the Special Forces team have to go in.
When death comes through the door, all they think about is stopping those people in black coming towards them.
One of the male terrorists appears with 2 hand grenades. These are deadly moments.
The lives of 86 innocent hostages are in the balance. The rescue mission will go down in Special Forces history. Operation Fire Magic. October the 13th, 1977. Lufthansa Flight LH181 takes off from the island of Mallorca. It sets a course over the Mediterranean Sea. On board are 5 crew and 86 passengers.
Flight LH181 was a typical holiday flight from Palma, Mallorca, back to Frankfurt. People had just enjoyed a good holiday, they were relaxed, they'd had a good time. Nobody could conceive what was about to happen.
As the pilot steers homeward bound towards Germany,
there were 2 terrorists at the back of the plane, 2 terrorists at the front. They're screaming, they're shouting.
The terrorists had pistols and grenades.
The passengers realised instantly this is a hijack situation.
the 4 terrorists herd the passengers to the back of the plane. They want all of the hostages where they can see them.
First thing they want to do is create fear on that plane. They grab a stewardess and they hit so hard that it crushes their face. It showed everybody on the plane that these guys are meaning business.
In the cockpit, Captain Jürgen Schumann and co-pilot Jürgen Viertel are held at gunpoint. They have no choice. They surrender to the terrorists. Captain Schumann is forced to set a course for Rome, Italy. The terrorists are in total control. The leader begins to mock his hostages.
He announced to all the passengers that he had taken over the aircraft and that he was in control. This was a moment of sheer terror for all the passengers. They knew that everything had changed and their lives were on the line now.
The plane is now near the south of France. The flight to Rome will take just over an hour. When the plane touches down, the terrorists radio the Italians in the control tower. Only now do they reveal what they want. The attack is the work of the PFLP, the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine. During the 1970s, this group of political terrorists had been involved in hijacks across the world and had a history of murder.
They were fanatically committed to their cause, and they were wanting to see this through to the end.
If you comply with our instructions...
One of the most dangerous terrorists in the PFLP is leading the hijack. He calls himself Captain Martyr Mahmoud.
The leader, Mahmoud, seemed to be really powerful within the group of four terrorists inside the aircraft, and he would destroy the aircraft, or he would kill people in order to get his own way.
This 22-year-old fanatic is a formidable opponent.
Captain Mahmoud's real name was Zuhair Akache. He had grown up in the refugee camps in the Middle East, where he'd become radicalized. But he was also a clever man. He trained in aeronautical engineering in the UK, and he learned how to fly Cessna aircraft.
I said listen!
Mahmoud reads his demands to the Italian authorities. The PFLP want $15 million, the release from prison of 2 Palestinian terrorists, and 11 members of the notorious Baader-Meinhof group. These left-wing militants had embarked on a campaign of bombings, assassinations, and kidnappings within Germany. If these dangerous terrorists aren't freed, and all of Mahmoud's terms aren't met, his team will destroy the plane and kill all of the hostages. In Germany, the job of dealing with the crisis lands on the desk of Hans-Jürgen Wisniewski, a minister in the German government.
Wisniewski had a number of very difficult roles to fulfill. One was to negotiate with all the countries in which the aircraft landed and to gain approval for armed action if necessary. The other, of course, was to negotiate with the terrorists, and the key point was buy time. The more time you had, the more space you had in which to act.
With 87 hostages' lives at stake, there's no time to waste. One of the first calls Wisniewski makes is to Germany's elite special forces team, GSG9.
GSG9 is a law enforcement SWAT team that are highly trained. They're trained in diving, they're trained in parachuting, coming out of helicopters, fast roping. They're trained in sniper operations, and of course, close quarters combat.
GSG9, cracking force. You know, they ain't going to be fluffy about things. They're going to get on with the mission and sort it.
GSG9 were born out of one of the darkest days in post-war German history. September the 5th, 1972, the Munich Olympics. Palestinian terrorists take Israeli athletes hostage. The German police launch a rescue raid, but it goes badly wrong. All of the hostages are killed. GSG9, a specialist anti-terrorist unit, is created just 6 months later, so the same mistakes aren't made again. The new team is led by 48-year-old Ulrich Wegener.
Colonel Wegener was the driving force behind GSG9. He had some experience working with the British SAS, also had experience working with Israeli special forces groups, and he was able to take a lot of that knowledge and create this souped-up SWAT team that primarily focused on anti-terrorism.
Wegener immediately realizes that attacking the hijacked plane will be an extremely difficult mission. He puts in a call.
Davies.
Barry Davies has spent years training with Britain's crack troops, the SAS.
The SAS had decided to set up counter-terrorist teams, and that had already been done some years before. We practiced on aircraft. Assaults were the big one, you know, how quickly you can get in from a starting point to actually closing with the terrorist and saving the hostages.
The SAS have pioneered new techniques and equipment to deal with plane hijacks. Critically, they have experience dealing with terrorists in Malaya and Northern Ireland.
The SAS were world leaders in counter-terrorism. And I guess GSG9 thought, yeah, let's have an observer team on board to see, you know, if they can help us out.
Within hours of the Germans' request, Davies and one of his SAS colleagues prepare to fly out and join the assault team. In Rome, the hijacked plane takes off after being refueled by the Italian authorities. On board, Mahmoud forces pilot Jürgen Schumann to fly towards the Middle East, looking for somewhere new to land.
Captain Schumann has to pilot the aircraft to destinations that hadn't been planned, destinations that are refusing him entry, and all the while with a gun at his head and the threat of the aircraft being destroyed.
The plane flies from Rome to Cyprus. It is then denied landing rights in Beirut, Damascus, and Baghdad. It's allowed a 1.5-hour stop in Bahrain before being forced to fly on to Dubai. It's been over 15 hours since the hijack began. For now, flight LH181 is allowed to stay on the runway in Dubai. The passengers endure stifling heat, hunger, and dehydration.
It was a pressure cooker inside the aircraft.
The terrorists eventually allow food and water on board, but the conditions inside continue to deteriorate. Hans-Jürgen Wisniewski, the politician in charge of the operation, flies into Dubai and begins negotiations with the government there.
The politicians behind the scenes have to make sure that it's okay to bring another country's special operations force into a host country and conduct a mission. I mean, that takes delicate political maneuvering to be able to get that accomplished.
But Wisniewski cannot convince the Dubai authorities to allow the main GSG9 team in to carry out the rescue mission. They insist on using local troops who don't have any specialist training. Only Wegener and 2 other GSG9 officers are allowed to land. The rest of the GSG9 team remain grounded. But there is some good news. The Dubai authorities do allow the 2-man British unit in to join Wegener.
We got on the plane, flew to Dubai. We then introduced ourselves to Wegener. We started talking, and it was like meeting a long-lost brother.
Wegener and Davies immediately start to plan for the attack. First, they need to know exactly what they're up against.
Gathering intelligence on the enemy is critical.
You need to know how many there are. You need to know what type of weapons they've got. Have they got explosives?
Your intelligence will be able to help you decipher who are the good guys and who are the bad guys.
On the plane, Captain Schumann takes an extraordinary risk. He seems to take a routine cigar break and throws the packet onto the runway.
He dropped the pack outside and somebody had had the foresight to pick it up.
It might not seem like much, but it contains vital intelligence for Wegener. Inside the packet, Wegener finds 4 cigars. They are a pre-arranged coded message between Lufthansa pilots and Germany's security forces.
There were 4 in the pack, 2 of them were broken, which indicated there were 2 men and 2 women, and this was correct.
Thanks to Schumann, Wegener now knows exactly how many terrorists he's up against. On the runway, the plane's air conditioning unit stops working.
They were on the tarmac where it's 120 degrees. Terrorists are tired, passengers are tired, thirsty, you name it. Highly stressed on that plane.
The toilets were overflowing, passengers were vomiting, they were passing out. So the interior of the aircraft becomes an incredibly hostile place to be.
The airport authorities try to get the plane's air conditioning system running, but they pump fuel into the wrong tank. It forces the terrorists to open the plane's doors for fresh air. It's another intelligence opportunity for Wegener.
They revealed themselves to photographers who took pictures of them. This helped GSG9 to identify them so that when they got on the aircraft they could see exactly who were the terrorists and who were the civilians.
The terrorists' distinctive Che Guevara t-shirts mark them out as clear targets. It's a start, but Wegener is a long way off being ready to go. The assault team don't have all the specialist kit they need for the attack, and nor do the army in Dubai.
We made a list of kit and what we needed. Ladders, shotguns, pistols, and everything else we really wanted. Masking tape, hacksaws.
The authorities in Dubai may not have all the equipment to hand, but they do have one thing: money.
We then had 2 quartermasters with so much money you could choke a camel. And all they did was just go back into town and buy whatever we needed.
Once the equipment arrives, the team goes to work. They saw off shotguns so they're easier to use in a confined space. They spray equipment black so it won't reflect light. Even the ladders are adjusted for the height of the hijacked 737.
And we got to work getting people sawing the ladders to the right length. There's a manual actually on what length the ladders have to be for what type of aircraft.
Although most of the tools the team have to hand are low-tech, Barry has brought along a new SAS weapon that's cutting edge.
We developed a lot of quite exciting assets to help us. One of them was the stun grenade.
The stun grenades create a series of flashes and loud bangs.
Best way to describe it, if you go to disco sometimes and they flash the blue lights and everybody seems to move in a sort of jerky way. Well, if you can imagine that with a high explosive in between each jerk, and that disorientated the terrorist enough so you could close with them.
The aim is to create a moment of confusion that will allow Wegener's team to board the plane.
Stun grenade back then was the latest technology, absolutely invaluable as a distraction, absolutely ideal in aircraft.
Flight LH181 has been in Dubai now for over 2 days.
Get your passports out.
Worryingly for Wegener, Mahmoud is becoming more unhinged. He goes through the hostages' passports, identifying those he thinks are Jewish.
This could have ominous implications for certain passengers should Mahmoud decide to start executing people.
At times, he delivers lectures on Palestinian politics. One is over an hour long.
A scarcely coherent rant, and he gets so fired up by this speech that he ends up discharging his gun. This is just one example of how his mental state is deteriorating as the hijack goes on.
At the other end of the airfield, a replica 737 has been commandeered. Wegener's team of GSG9, SAS, and local Dubai Defence Force troops now use it to rehearse the assault.
My task was to train a team to actually take over the aircraft.
Because the squad hasn't worked together before, Barry goes back to basics.
So we had a team. I explained exactly what we're going to do, and we would do it as simple as possible. And the idea was to go in through the 2 emergency hatches either side, get past the passengers, into the aisle. 1 2-man team would go forward, 1 2-man team would go to the rear, killing everything in this way until we got control of the aircraft.
Barry walks each person through the drill.
I choked each person on the back, and when I said go, you go there. When I said do this, they went there, and that's how it worked. When you actually start training and you've done it, the drill for 5 or 6 times, then you can do it without being instructed. So we just honed on everything then, look, you could do it quicker. Eventually, they knew exactly what to do.
After hours of training, the team are ready. Wisniewski finally gets the clearance for the raid from the authorities.
And we had a green light to go that night, and we would have taken them out that night.
The assault team make their final preparations.
You just had the feeling it was going to go.
But then...
we saw the plane taking off. And then we were told that the plane had just left on its own accord. We actually thought it was over. I mean, there was a lot of disappointment. We thought we were going to return to UK.
Operation Fire Magic has suffered a major setback. On board Flight LH181, Mahmoud forces Captain Schumann to set a course south.
You are messing about.
The hijacked plane leaves Dubai and heads towards the country then known as South Yemen, and its capital city, Aden. During the 3-hour flight, the terrorists reveal a terrifying surprise.
The terrorists took on board with them about 2 kilos of plastic explosive. They rig the aircraft, making it effectively into a flying bomb. One press of a button, the whole aircraft could be destroyed.
If that wasn't bad enough, another crisis looms as the plane nears South Yemen. Captain Schumann is refused permission to land.
The runway in Aden had been blocked.
The radio commands say you cannot land here.
But Flight LH181 is running on empty. and there are no airports nearby.
Schumann, however, knows he has no choice. The fuel is exceptionally low.
Without permission, Schumann decides he's going to land on a rough strip next to the main runway. Its soft, sandy surface could cause the plane to flip when it touches down.
This is a rough landing. They are braced for disaster.
Schumann makes it. His passengers are safe for now. But it's only a temporary relief. The Yemeni authorities want flight LH181 straight back into the air. Schumann is worried his plane isn't airworthy after the emergency landing. He wants to go outside and inspect it.
Yes, you can!
Incredibly, Mahmoud consents to this. Being an aeronautical engineer, he understands that the undercarriage needs to be in sound condition.
Schumann checks underneath the plane. He finds no serious damage, but he still has no fuel and needs to speak to the Yemeni authorities.
Crucially, without Mahmoud's permission, he walks across the runway and goes to the aid and control tower to talk with officials there.
Mahmoud thinks Schumann is escaping and is incensed. The airport authorities don't want to get involved. Schumann is forced to go back to his plane.
I warned you. Why did you defy?
Mahmoud turns on him.
A terrible silence fell over the aircraft after the shot, and people knew that the situation was changing into a dramatic new sphere.
Whether Mahmoud intended it or not, by murdering Schumann, there's now little hope of a negotiated settlement.
When you kill an innocent person, they just change the dynamics of the game, and now the mission is going to happen. You know, it's going to happen. There's no doubt in any of the team members' minds it's going to happen. It probably needs to go sooner than later.
There was a total mood change with everybody. From now on, we follow them to the end of the earth.
But for now, the GSG9 team have to wait. The authorities in South Yemen refuse them permission to enter their country. After 10 hours on the ground, the Yemenis want the plane gone, and flight LH181 is refueled and on the move again. Mahmoud now forces co-pilot Jürgen Vietor to set a new course. This time, flight LH181 flies from the Middle East to Africa. Its destination, Mogadishu. It is the capital city of the country then known as the Somali Democratic Republic, a stable regime with good relations with the West. In the early morning, the plane touches down at Mogadishu Airport. Captain Schumann's body is unceremoniously dumped on the tarmac. Mahmoud begins negotiations with Somali police and German embassy staff. What they hear alarms them.
Mahmoud's mental state has completely deteriorated.
So you have tired terrorists that you're dealing with, and people can start dying really fast.
He's becoming increasingly unstable as the minutes go by.
Mahmoud sets a new ultimatum. If his German and Palestinian comrades are not released, and the $15 million not delivered by 3 o'clock that afternoon, the plane and everyone in it will be blown up. Shortly afterwards, a plane carrying Colonel Wegener, Barry Davies, and a small military team touches down. Hans-Jürgen Wisniewski, the politician, is also on board with the negotiating team. He pleads with Mahmoud for an extension to his deadline, even if he could secure the release of the prisoners. There is not enough time to get them from Europe to Mogadishu before the time limit expires.
Wisniewski's negotiations with Mahmoud became increasingly fraught as the hijacking went on.
Mahmoud decides to show he means business. With half an hour to go before his deadline expires, he prepares to incinerate the aircraft and its occupants.
What they did do was use the duty-free alcohol, and they poured alcohol over them so they burn quickly. And they actually told them that's what they were doing it for. The people inside the aircraft got the feeling that they were getting close to the end.
Now! Comms, now!
Gabby Dillman, one of the cabin crew, relays a message to the team in the control tower. Feeling abandoned by the German government, it is a desperate farewell.
We know this is the end, and that we shall die. Many of us are too young to die. Still, it is better to die than to live in a world where human lives count for so little. I hope it will be quick.
She makes a heartfelt plea for their lives, but also there's a very bleak note to it. She mentions at one point, "We know that this is the end and we shall all die."
Wisniewski realizes he's out of time and adopts a high-risk strategy. He lies to Mahmoud and tells him exactly what he wants to hear.
They were being talked to and told that they'd won, and told them they could have the money, and told them they could actually talk to their friends who had been released from jails in Germany and would be on an aircraft and they could talk to them very soon. All these things gave them some hope that they were going to win and they were going to live.
Wisniewski's gamble works. Mahmoud believes his comrades have been released. He extends the deadline by 10 hours to give them time to be flown to Somalia. Wisniewski and the Special Forces team now have until 2:30 the following morning to launch the attack. Now Wisniewski asks the Somali government to let the rescue raid go ahead.
We were told to wait until we were cleared. Wisniewski had talked to the Prime Minister there and promised them all sorts of aid and weapons, and that did the trick.
The Somalis agree to the raid, but like in Dubai, they insist that local soldiers are involved as well. But this time, the full GSG9 contingent of 60 highly trained operatives are allowed into Somalia. GSG9's commander, Ulrich Wegener, goes to work straight away on the revised plan.
The plan in Mogadishu was a more elaborate plan than we'd had in Dubai. In Mogadishu, we had full team there, and we opened all doors simultaneously and the wings. So we had multiple entry points just in case somebody got blocked up.
Wegener's plan is that his team will approach the aircraft from its blind spot, the rear. They'll position assault ladders against the aircraft's fuselage at 6 entrance points. Somali troops will set off an explosion 300 meters away as a distraction. At the same time, stun grenades will disorientate the enemy long enough to allow Wegener's men in. Once through the doors, the team will systematically move through Flight LH181 until it is cleared of the terrorists. It's an ingenious plan. But even so, this mission is full of risk.
It is a bad target to attack because you can't predict what the terrorists are going to do in such a confined small area with so many people on board.
An hour before Mahmoud's deadline expires, Wegener's assault team form up at the end of the runway. Separately, GSG9 snipers have moved into concealed positions around Flight LH181. They radio Wegener's team with information about the position of the hijackers within the aircraft.
They told us that the blinds were down and coast was clear. And in one big line, we walked towards the rear of the aircraft because there's a blind spot on the aircraft.
The team have to cross hundreds of meters of runway without being seen or heard.
Unfortunately, as we were walking towards the aircraft, the big searchlights which light up the old airfield, throwing shadows at least 30 meters long. And if you'd looked out the window, you'd have seen this line of shadows coming towards you.
Fortunately for Wegener's men, Wisniewski's negotiating team distract the terrorists by keeping them busy close to the radio at the front of the aircraft.
We knew exactly where Mahmoud was. He was in the cockpit. The Somalis were talking to Mahmoud and saying, "You've won, my brother. I have just had news from Germany. They have released the friends. They are on a plane. They're in the air. In at least 20 or 30 minutes, you can talk to them directly yourself. We have the money here. We can wheel it out in front of you, give you the 15 million. And, you know, please don't kill anybody because you've won, you've won."
The assault team makes it to the plane undetected. They gather under the fuselage in their designated squads and ready themselves for the assault.
The teams with the ladders put them against the wing and also against the doors, front and rear.
The team now scale the wings and get into their final positions.
We crouched up right up next to the body where they can't see you. If someone's looking out the window, if the window is open, they can't see you because there's that little gap of dead ground. Now you've got to be yourself pretty tight in there until you get the go.
On cue, the Somalis set off a huge explosion as a distraction.
It was an almighty bang, and I think a whole Bowser worth of petrol went up. It just lit the place up like daylight.
Mahmoud is stunned in the cockpit, unsure of how to react. It's now or never for the attack.
Ulrich Wegener was counting. He counted down from 10. And then you hear, stand by, go. I can tell you now, the adrenaline just jumps up right to 100%. I threw the first stun grenade over the cockpit, and I threw the second one right across the cabin. And there was a mighty flash and bang.
At that very second, the assault team try to force the doors open.
These are 32-kilogram doors. They take a lot of force to open.
It's a blur, the door goes down.
And straight away they're inside with guns drawn.
When the GSG9 went in, they were shouting Hinleg, get your head down, basically. Stay down, stay down.
They were able to get the hostages' heads down and start attacking the terrorists.
Wegener's men come face to face with their first terrorist. She is gunned down, falling to the ground, severely wounded. They have to move fast. The plane is still rigged with explosives.
The GSG9 team fight with complete ruthlessness. They have to take out these people and stop them with excessive force.
Another terrorist advances. In his hands are 2 grenades.
These are deadly moments. If the hand grenades go off, the whole aircraft could be wrecked. But GSG9 officers have only one choice.
One of the grenades, with its pin pulled, falls from the terrorist's hand. The stewardess, Gabby Dillman, is hit in the foot, and another passenger is wounded. But GSG9 have had a lucky escape.
It wasn't a very good grenade. I mean, I think they were quite weak. I think most of it absorbed by the seating.
GSG9 must take down the 2 other terrorists before it's too late. As one team moves forward, another tries to get the passengers off the plane as quickly as possible.
They were screaming to get the passengers out, and they started coming out in their droves. Initially, the people that come out the back door, which I could see, they were trying to slide down the ladder.
At the front of the aircraft, GSG9 slowly advance and corner the most dangerous terrorist in the group, Captain Mahmoud.
Mahmoud is in the cockpit area, and he's opened fire with a handgun. He staggers back into the cockpit. He's still dangerous, reaching for a hand grenade.
3 of the cell are now out of action, but there's still 1 terrorist missing.
There are still explosives on the aircraft, there are still weapons, there's still a dangerous individual.
The missing terrorist is a woman, but where is she? Could she be hiding amongst the passengers? Wegener's men have to treat everyone as a potential suspect.
The GSG9 team have to find her, and find her quickly.
Inside the plane, the hunt for the missing terrorist continues.
They heard the person in there.
She's been hiding in the toilet. The 4th and final terrorist is taken out. The mission is over. 7 minutes after bursting into the plane, Wegener radios in the code word, springtime. All of the terrorists are either dead or wounded, and the hostages are safely off the plane. Operation Fire Magic has been a complete success.
Everybody was really elated. We were all patting ourselves on the back and saying how good we were, and we were really pleased.
Wisniewski can breathe a sigh of relief. The politicians' tireless negotiations have played a crucial part in the mission's success. As the hostages have their first taste of freedom for 6 days, The one surviving terrorist, Suhaila Sayeh, is stretchered off the plane, defiant to the end.
The moment they got Suhaila out, which they thought was dead, she was very much alive, and they put her on a stretcher, and she put her hands up in the air and two fingers and shouted, "Free Palestine."
Later that morning, the team whose bravery and expertise had bought 86 hostages their freedom flies back to Germany.
And I didn't realize Lufthansa carried so much alcohol, and we made really good friends with the GSG9 on that time coming back.
Wegener and his team land in Germany to a hero's welcome. Operation Fire Magic is a massive blow against the morale of the PFLP and its terrorist allies.
The mission in Mogadishu sent a message out to the terrorist world that they no longer held all the cards. The German authorities could say now that we are in control and that we can get back at terrorists if they try to strike at us.
When the news of GSG9's success broke, 3 of the 11 Baader-Meinhof prisoners that Mahmoud had demanded be released commit suicide in prison. In the following years, Special Forces teams around the world study Operation Fire Magic as the textbook hostage rescue from a hijacked plane.
The GSG9 mission would rank right up there with one of the most successful special operations missions in history because of everything kind of working together. The political side, the intelligence gathering side, negotiators, and the special operations drill that went pretty much flawless.
The operation in Mogadishu put GSG9 on the map and gave them a deserved reputation for tactical excellence and for efficiency. And they built on that reputation ever since.
He is the master terrorist, behind dozens of murderous attacks on innocent civilians.
His hands are covered with Jewish blood. As far as Israel is concerned, he was an arch-terrorist.
There is no choice but to take him out. Tasked with the operation is Israel's elite Special Forces unit.
Sayeret Matkal is nothing short of legendary or mythical.
But with their target hiding in an enemy nation 1,500 miles from Israel, this will be one of the most ambitious operations ever mounted.
You go in, you kill him, you go out. Perfect assassination.
This is the true story of the Sayeret Matkal mission to kill Abu Jihad. In the dead of night, 3 terrorists infiltrate the Israeli border.
This was a raid by Palestinians.
They armed themselves from a secret weapons cache that the PLO had in Egypt.
Carrying AK-47s, they evade the Israeli border patrols.
They crossed Israel's southern Negev desert.
Their presence remains a secret until when they reach a remote desert road. They hijack a passing car. Israeli intelligence receive reports about the car hijacking. They now know armed gunmen are on the loose inside Israel. But they have no idea what their target is.
This triggered an enormous security alert in southern Israel. Roadblocks were put up.
An hour later, the gunman's car is sighted approaching a high security area.
It was not far from Dimona, which is the site of Israel's nuclear reactor.
It becomes clear that the terrorists are planning to attack the Dimona reactor, Israel's most important military facility.
Yes, the one where Israel has nuclear weapons but has never admitted that they have nuclear weapons.
With the top-secret facility at risk, army units race to intercept the terrorists before they can reach their target. Realizing that Israeli forces are closing down on them, the Palestinians suddenly change their plans.
The group kidnapped a bus that was bringing workers from the Dimona nuclear reactor back home.
Some of the passengers manage to escape, but 11 are trapped. 10 are women. Israeli security forces surround the bus and try to negotiate with the terrorists. But the gunmen are not interested in negotiating. Then they turn their weapons on the hostages. Now, the security forces have to go in.
You know, from here, if you're not gonna respond, more people gonna die.
First, they get into position. Then, they strike. In a matter of seconds, Israeli soldiers take over the bus, killing all 3 of the terrorists. But quick as they are not fast enough.
3 of the workers at the Dimona plant were killed.
2 of the victims are young mothers. It becomes known as the Mother's Bus Attack. Even in a nation used to terrorism, this is still a shocking act.
The Dimona bus attack was different from what was going on.
This one was such a horrific attack that targeted not only innocent people, but mothers and women. That really was the most raw nerve in Israel.
But even as the mourners gather, Israeli intelligence agencies have already identified the man behind the attack. The man they are after is Abu Jihad. In Arabic, Abu Jihad means father of the struggle. The Israelis know that this is a title used by a leading Palestinian commander.
Abu Jihad is a nom de guerre, like a lot of Palestinian names. His real name is Khalil al-Wazir.
Abu Jihad is the legendary militant commander of the PLO.
In the Palestinian organization, of course, he was admired as one of their top leaders.
He is the number 2 man in the Palestinian Liberation Organization and heads its military wing.
Abu Jihad was in charge of operations of Al-Fatah.
Under Abu Jihad's command, Al-Fatah have undertaken dozens of attacks on Israel.
He had organized and planned some quite significant Palestinian actions. innocent people have been killed, often in brutal circumstances.
As far as Israel is concerned, he was an arch-terrorist.
Abu Jihad was a very dangerous man.
Abu Jihad is such a threat to Israel that for 20 years they have been trying to take him out.
The hunt for Abu Jihad was conducted throughout the years. There were numerous attempts on his life. All of them failed.
Israeli military intelligence first tried to kill Abu Jihad in Damascus with a car bomb. They missed. A decade later, the Israeli Air Force tried to kill him in an airstrike on Beirut. But again, he walked away. The mother's bus attack is proof that the master terrorist has reared his head once more. But the threat he poses may be worse than just terrorism. The Israelis believe that Abu Jihad is also behind the biggest challenge to their authority that they have ever faced. For 3 months, the Palestinian population of Israel has been in revolt.
There was this uprising against their rule. There were large crowds of people, often young people, throwing stones at Israeli forces. It had elements of an armed uprising.
Its military was in the West Bank dealing with a wide array of protest.
It has become known as the Intifada, the uprising. And Israel believes that the hand that controls it is Abu Jihad's.
He claimed responsibility for the outbreak of the Palestinian Intifada. He said, I was the one ordering the troops, ordering the demonstrators to go to the street.
Israel cannot allow the insurrection to continue.
The Intifada caused an enormous international damage to Israeli prestige worldwide.
They felt they have to get back at Abu Jihad. They felt that he couldn't be allowed to get away with that.
And the man who decides to deal with Abu Jihad is Yitzhak Rabin, Israel's Minister of Defense.
Yitzhak Rabin, who was basically leading the Israeli intelligence and security forces.
Rabin was quite a hardliner. He was a military man through and through.
His whole concept of peace was based on the fact that Israel had to be strong and it had to defend itself. He also believed very strongly in targeting those terrorists that were attacking Israelis.
Rabin decides that Israel must kill Abu Jihad. But immediately, Rabin faces a problem. Abu Jihad is a long way from Israeli shores. Israeli intelligence have traced Abu Jihad to Tunis, North Africa, 1,500 miles from Israel. The city has become the new headquarters for the Palestinian Liberation Organization.
That was the place where the PLO headquarters was, far away from Israel on the coast of Africa.
Abu Jihad and other key Palestinian leaders have homes in a quiet suburb of the Tunisian capital.
He lived with his family in a villa in a beachside neighborhood of Tunis.
Being so far away from Israel, Abu Jihad felt quite confident and safe. He didn't think that Israeli intelligence would be able to get so far, so remotely from Israel.
But he is wrong. Abu Jihad is already under the watchful eye of Israel's intelligence service, Mossad.
These people are followed, these people are tracked. They knew where he was.
Israel's intelligence agency carried out surveillance of the area of Tunis where Abu Jihad was living along with other PLO leaders.
4 days after the mother's bus attack, Rabin orders Mossad to come up with a way to kill Abu Jihad. Initially, the agency is confident that they can do it themselves.
They told Defense Minister Rabin that they could come up with an operational plan to assassinate Abu Jihad in Tunisia within 30 days.
Mossad come up with various alternatives for killing Abu Jihad.
By a sniper, by exploding his car, by planting a booby trap, explosive where he was driving from his house to his office, by poisoning him, by firing rockets on his house. All sorts of possible operations.
But Rabin rejects them all. None of these options guarantee that Abu Jihad will be killed. With the Intifada raging, they simply cannot afford to miss. As far as Rabin is concerned, there is only one way to ensure success: to kill him at point-blank range.
It was decided that Abu Jihad is going to be killed in his house.
But killing the PLO's military commander in his home, 1,500 miles from Israel, will be no easy task.
Far harder to target somebody in Tunis than in somewhere that is, 20 minutes flying time or just across one of Israel's borders.
And so at the end of the day, Mossad came to Yitzhak Rabin and said, we are not able to do this alone.
Skilled assassins as they are, getting a hit team inside Abu Jihad's house without being discovered is beyond even the Mossad. So Rabin now calls upon a highly secretive Special Operations Brigade, famed for their ability to strike at Israel's enemies wherever they may try to hide.
When Israel wants to strike, Israeli leaders turn to a special unit of the Israeli military.
The immediate candidate to perform the assassination is the General Staff Reconnaissance Unit.
But in Israel, they are known by another name. In English, they are known as the unit, but in Hebrew, they call them the Sayeret Matkal.
Sayeret Matkal in Israel is nothing short of legendary or mythical. It's essentially the top unit in the army.
It's the sort of byword for an elite unit. There are others, but that's the sort of crème de la crème.
It's a unit modeled after the British SAS. SEAL teams are similar to it, Delta Force is similar to it.
Like these other special forces units, the Sayeret Matkal are experts at killing people.
They're thought of as assassination specialists.
They're willing to sacrifice everything for their country.
Commandos train intensively in survival skills, marksmanship, and hand-to-hand combat.
Their job is to go on special operations that are considered beyond the scope of your regular troops.
Only the very best of the Israeli military are recruited into the Sayeret Matkal.
You're looking in an elite unit for a person that in no time can concentrate and do the things fast. You're looking for a person that will never give up on himself.
These men have the reputation for accomplishing things, getting things done.
That reputation was cemented by a legendary operation that took place in 1976. Terrorists hijack an Air France plane with more than 100 Israeli and Jewish civilians on board. The plane is diverted to the Ugandan capital, Entebbe. When Uganda's dictator, Idi Amin, decides to cooperate with the terrorists, Israel calls on the Sayeret Matkal.
The unit Sayeret Matkal took something like a few weeks to train on the model of the airplane. fly to Entebbe and to give the right solution for the incident.
That solution is for the Sayeret Matkal commandos to disguise themselves as members of the Ugandan army. Once on the ground, the unit strikes.
They went in there, did a counter-terrorism mission over 1,000 miles from home, killed the terrorist, got out of there alive.
102 hostages were rescued and returned to Israel, with only 3 civilian casualties.
That lightning raid, of course, became legendary.
And that was the beginning of their reputation as being a hardcore unit.
Rabin believes there is no other unit better suited for the task of taking out Abu Jihad. So he puts in a call to a man who had been one of the architects of the Entebbe mission. He is Israel's most decorated soldier and a living legend. Ehud Barak.
Ehud Barak was head of Sayeret Matkal, one of the most famous commanders of Sayeret Matkal.
He was in a position then as being a chief of staff or head of military intelligence.
Very serious guy, very smart guy, very sharp guy, very decorated guy.
Rabin orders Barak to draw up a plan for the Sayeret Matkal to assassinate Abu Jihad. It will be known as Operation Show of Force. Now Barak demonstrates one of the hallmarks of the Sayeret Matkal: meticulous planning. The key will be finding out as much as he can about conditions on the ground.
They, more than anybody, know the importance of intelligence and good intelligence.
Despite the distance, if everything was carefully looked at in advance, there was a reasonable chance that they could be able to get away with it.
First, Barak has Mossad send more agents to Tunisia. Previously, Mossad had been simply keeping tabs on Abu Jihad. Now they are tasked with gathering detailed information on his every movement.
The Mossad sent people into Tunisia, posing as either tourists or business people, very routine again for the Mossad.
They were sent to Tunisia to check all various questions that came from Sayeret Matkal.
Posing as Lebanese Arabs, the new team liaise with the agents already embedded in Tunis. The agents monitor Abu Jihad's journeys around the city.
The Israeli intelligence was updated of the tiniest details of Abu Jihad daily routine and daily schedule.
The agents listen in on telephone calls to his home.
The Mossad would use electronic means to intercept communications and listen in, so they were confident that they would know when Abu Jihad is at home.
Watching and listening to his every move, the Mossad team soon learn the vital information that Barak needs to launch his operation.
Who is in the house with Abu Jihad? How the house is built? Who is sleeping in each room? How many guards? How far is the police station?
They know the height of the perimeter walls, the types of windows, doors, and locks, the distance between the rooms. They soon know every aspect of the villa's defenses.
They know exactly where he is and on what floor of the building and when he goes to sleep and when he comes and when he goes and where his bodyguard's going to be, etc.
Armed with the intelligence from Mossad, back in Israel, Barak begins to draw up plans for the operation.
And so Sayeret Matkal was starting to plan how to take out Abu Jihad.
The plan Barak develops is to send in a small team of commandos to assault the villa under cover of darkness. But it will only work if it is carefully choreographed.
The preparation and planning is the most important thing in a mission for the Special Forces soldier or the Special Forces unit.
They construct their plan using the detailed Mossad intelligence.
And they built a small model, which is an exact copying of the house.
Barak marks out the guard posts and points of entry.
They get all their intelligence together, and then they have to figure out the best route in to that target.
Different strategies for the assault are debated in order to minimize the risk of failure.
The soldiers are smart and they have a lot of experience, and if they have a good idea, then the idea is taken and the plan is changed.
Once this is agreed, the commandos mark out the exact footprint of the villa and practice the assault again and again.
That was something that Israeli intelligence and the Sayeret Matkal commandos frequently did. They never wanted to leave anything to chance.
Like every other secret or special operation, you should train. Train for the exact steps, for the exact performance of yourself and others and so on. But expect the unexpected.
The next stage is to practice the mission in real conditions.
Sayeret Matkal asked few people to donate a house in Israel not far away from the beach for rehearsals. House is quite similar to that of Abu Jihad.
And again practice the assault in Israel before embarking on the mission.
Whilst the commandos are practicing for the assault on the villa, Barak turns his attentions to one outstanding issue. That means getting the commando unit the 1,500 miles to Tunisia, safely and secretly.
All arms of Israeli power would be involved here. The Mossad, the military intelligence, the Navy, the Air Force.
Barak mobilizes the entire Israeli military. First, the Navy will take the commandos from Israel to Tunisian waters in missile boats.
It was a huge armada of ships, airplanes, cargo ships, carrying helicopters.
Above them, Barak orders the Air Force to be ready with an emergency evacuation plan.
Sayeret Matkal is under the coverage of the Air Force in order to be evacuated if something really bad happens.
It is an almost unprecedented mission in its size and ambition.
This was a huge operation. Thousands of soldiers and intelligence officers from the Navy, Mossad, military intelligence.
Having arranged how to get the commandos to Tunisia, Barak now focuses on a very particular problem. The nearest landing beach is 2.5 miles from the villa. This presents him with two problems.
The first is how to get Sayeret Matkal to the house. And the second was how to get them back safely and alive after the assassination.
How can Barak get the team through the Tunisian streets without them being detected by either the Palestinians or the Tunisian police?
Bear in mind, Tunisia is an Arab country and not a democratic state. It's a sort of a police state far away from Israel.
They have to get there quickly without drawing attention. So they need an insertion plan.
So Barak comes up with an ingenious method to get the commandos to and from the villa without being detected. First, they will arrange a distraction to clear the area of police.
We're expecting local forces to intervene. So you give a notice to the police, the local police, that something happens far away on the other side of the city. So everyone is concentrated there. You have time to go.
Next, the Mossad agents on the ground will rent cars and drive them to the beachfront. There they will collect the commandos and ferry them to a location near to the villa.
Those rented cars were placed on the beach in Tunis to make sure that no suspicions would be aroused.
The Mossad agents will park the cars near Abu Jihad's home, but the commandos will have to walk the final few yards to the villa on foot. This is when they will be most exposed. To get them the last few hundred yards, Barak turns to his own experiences. "15 years earlier, Barak was involved in one of the most remarkable missions in the history of the Sayeret Matkal. The unit was sent into Beirut, the heart of enemy territory. They were sent to kill the men behind the slaughter of 11 Israeli athletes at the Munich Olympics. To infiltrate the city undetected, Barak and the others employed a very unusual disguise.
Some of them are dressed as women in order not to distract attention that just a group of men is walking in the street. It's always easier to have men and women together.
Their disguises allowed the unit to disperse through the city undetected and launch multiple synchronized attacks. At the end of that operation, 15 known terrorists were dead. Now Barak's team will play the same trick in Tunisia in order to get to Abu Jihad's villa undetected.
The Israelis felt that they could do that even in Tunisia, even 1,500 miles away. So that playbook was turned to once again.
This leaves Barak with one final decision: to choose the man to lead the mission. He chooses Nahum Lev, the deputy chief of the Sayeret Matkal.
Nahum Lev, his deputy, one of the most brave and legendary figures and different figures in the history of Sayeret Matkal, to lead the operation.
Having read all the available intelligence, Lev declares that Abu Jihad is a dead man walking.
He said, I read the file on Abu Jihad. I knew how many Jews, how many brother Israelis he killed. I knew that his hands are covered with Jewish blood. He deserved to die.
Lev's task is to be the first man into the villa and to locate Abu Jihad. Lev and his men now embark on the 1,500-mile journey to Tunisian waters. The quarter-century chase for Abu Jihad is almost over. At a military base south of Tel Aviv, a specially adapted passenger jet takes off bound for Tunisia.
The Israelis used an electronic warfare aircraft, a converted Boeing.
Barak will command the operation from the plane, which has been turned into a flying control center. A few hours later, the plane reaches Tunisian airspace. Barak now orders the Mossad team to the beach.
The Mossad was waiting with the rented cars by the shore, waiting for the Sayeret Matkal people to come ashore.
With the Mossad agents in place, the order is given for the Sayeret Matkal to land. They are taken ashore by members of Flotilla 13, Israel's Navy SEALs. To minimize sound, commanders row the last few hundred meters to shore.
The Israelis landed in the dead of night. They were picked up by the Mossad people. Nobody was there when it came to Tunisian security.
Immediately, the commandos change into their tourist disguises.
They're all changing very quickly. They change their clothes to civilian clothes. Some of them are dressed as women. The whole group, Mossad, Flotilla 13, and Sayeret Matkal are waiting at the beach for the final go-ahead.
As they wait for a green light, the commandos learn from Barak that there's a problem. Israeli intelligence have intercepted a phone call to Abu Jihad.
Someone from the PLO headquarters called Abu Jihad and said that they were warned by apparently a European intelligence service that the Israelis are thinking of killing a PLO senior figure.
Barak's fear is that if Abu Jihad suspects he might be the senior figure being targeted, he may flee Tunis immediately.
The Israelis were quite afraid that he's going to take this threat seriously.
Barak demands a report from the Mossad team watching the villa. Is Abu Jihad at home, or has he fled Tunis? The agents report that his Mercedes has been seen arriving at the villa, but they cannot confirm that Abu Jihad was in the car.
They saw people going out of Abu Jihad house and getting into the house, but they didn't see their face.
While Barak waits to find out where Abu Jihad is, he orders the Mossad agents at the beach to take the Sayeret Matkal to their position near the villa.
Quite rapidly, they launched the force, the Sayeret Matkal force, from the beach to Abu Jihad house.
At about 1 o'clock in the morning, the three vehicles that contained the Israeli commandos went into this neighborhood called Sidi Bou Said. One vehicle containing 8 Israeli commandos actually went to the front of the house.
But Barak still cannot order the commandos to launch their assault.
Even after forces left the beach and went on to the house, we still did not have the right assurance to go in.
They were waiting there for the final approval of the commanders of the operation that Abu Jihad is indeed at home.
These are the actual words from secret radio communications between the units as they wait for the order to proceed.
Bogart, this is Richard. I want to tell you it is possible that there are some people who are not sleeping in the office. Okay, Richard, I understand.
They use code names and speak in English instead of Hebrew, in case anyone is listening.
Israeli commandos were sitting with their Uzi submachine guns and pistols between their legs, just waiting for the signal to proceed.
Without absolute certainty that the target is at home, Barak cannot give the order to strike.
They assured the Minister of Defense that they will know for sure that Abu Jihad is in the house before launching the assault.
It is now that Barak shows the Sayeret Matkal's real quality. He has a backup plan.
Israel is famous for being adjustable. We change views, we change behavior, we change actions according to time and persons involved. That's elite unit.
A few days previously, Barak had ordered an operation in the Palestinian territories.
They raid a house in Gaza and arrest a distant relative of Abu Jihad, a lawyer.
Now, in a secret underground basement in Tel Aviv, a call is made to Abu Jihad's villa using a specially diverted line.
Something that would look like a phone call from Italy to Abu Jihad's office in his home.
Making the call is an Israeli agent who pretends to be a Palestinian, informing Abu Jihad of his relative's arrest.
It was shouting and cursing, Abu Jihad, you must help. They have arrested Abu Rahma again. These son of a bitches, Zionists, they have arrested Abu Rahma and they are torturing him.
Then they hear the voice on the other end of the line.
The speaker says, who is this? Please calm down. We'll make sure everything is okay. We'll help Abu Rahma. Don't worry.
The agent has to keep the person on the phone talking. Listening in are 3 Arabic experts who have been trained to recognize Abu Jihad's voice.
Each one of them had to raise his right arm when he's 100% confident that this is Abu Jihad speaking from the other side of the line.
As the 3 soldiers listen to the voice, first one and then another raise their right hands into the air. Finally, the third hand is raised.
It was approved and confirmed and corroborated that Abu Jihad is in the house.
Finally, Barak can give the order to strike.
Bogart, this is Richard. You can leave the station. You can leave the station. Do it fast. I say it again, do it fast.
Lev, the commander of the operation, and another commando dressed as a woman begin the final approach to the villa. Disguised as a romantic couple, they walk through the busy streets.
Hidden in plain sight. Nobody would think twice looking at these guys.
Their task, to approach the villa undetected and take out the guard on the gate.
So they were a pair walking in the street carrying a chocolate box.
But the innocuous-looking chocolate box Lev carries actually conceals a gun.
They had a weapon hidden under a box of chocolates. It's not going to be in a holster, and it won't be slung around the neck.
Lev and his partner now approach the entrance to the villa, where the guard is sat in Abu Jihad's black Mercedes.
They got close to the driver of Abu Jihad that was still sitting in the car.
The woman distracts the guard by asking for directions.
They pulled out a map and they wanted to ask him some sort of tourist request.
As the guard looks over the map, Lev acts. Now the other commandos make their move.
The 8 commandos swiftly assaulted the house.
They went to the backyard and came to the door. It made some noise, and Abu Jihad heard it in the upper floor.
Lev and his accomplice concentrate on the stairs that will lead to Abu Jihad. The other team go to take out the remaining bodyguards. With the bodyguards dealt with, Lev and his partner close in on the main target.
One of the assassins of Sayeret Matkal was going up the stairs, a young officer of Sayeret Matkal who was chosen by Nahum Lev to be the first one to come in.
The commando hears someone at the top of the stairs. Is it Abu Jihad or an innocent member of his family? The commando knows that he will have to identify the target in an instant. The commando reacts instinctively.
And then other people from the unit came and shot Abu Jihad as well.
70 bullets hit Abu Jihad, and his right hand, which had held the pistol, was nearly severed.
But as they are firing, Abu Jihad's wife suddenly appears.
She screamed, "Halas, halas, stop it, stop it. Don't you see that he's already dead?"
But even with everyone's nerves on edge, discipline holds.
Even when the unexpected happened, the wife did not get hurt. We will avoid shooting even on the expense of getting hurt.
Instead, Lev orders her to face the wall. And with Abu Jihad confirmed dead, the commandos depart.
Once it was finished, they rushed into the cars, back to the beach, back to the boats, and
the entire operation has been accomplished in a matter of minutes.
At dawn, when Tunisian investigators and a PLO team went out to see what happened, all they found were the 3 rented vehicles and footprints on the sand.
As the commandos journey back to Israel, they know that even by their own high standards, Operation Show of Force is an outstanding achievement.
Abu Jihad, who as far as the Israelis were concerned was the main planner of the intifada they were out to stop, was dead.
But the mission hadn't been quite flawless. Despite all the intelligence gathered, there was something they had missed. At the time of the raid, Abu Jihad's gardener was sleeping in the basement of the villa. This innocent man had been killed alongside Abu Jihad's bodyguards. Soon news of the operation reaches Israel.
When the troops were on their way home, it was already published that someone killed Abu Jihad in his house.
Israel has never formally admitted to killing Abu Jihad, but there was never really any doubt about it.
But there is a strange twist to this tale. The news of Abu Jihad's death does not have the effect Rabin had hoped for.
It's all very well being clever at killing Palestinian leaders, but the PLO didn't disappear. The Intifada didn't stop.
In fact, the violence gets worse. News of Abu Jihad's death triggers the bloodiest day of protests since the Intifada began. And in a bizarre development, the Israelis learn that despite his claims, Abu Jihad had never had anything to do with the Intifada.
In fact, he was lying. He didn't know that the Intifada is going to break up, he or the PLO. And they sort of jumped on the wagon after it started, claimed responsibility for something that they had none involvement whatsoever in.
And the reaction of Israelis wasn't what Rabin had expected either.
There was quite a lot of comment in Israel that, well, this was a brilliantly executed mission by our boys. At the end of the day, did it make much difference in the big picture? Not really.
But one difference it did make was to the career of the man in charge of the operation, Ehud Barak.
It's hard to overstate what a legendary career he's had.
In the years after the Tunisian mission, Barak was made Chief of the General Staff. And in 1999, the Israeli people showed their admiration for the Sayeret Matkal when they elected this former leader of the unit to become Israeli Prime Minister.
The Israeli public, though it doesn't know much about precisely what Sayeret Matkal has done, well, the Israeli public knows that it's a trustworthy group of men who get things done.